Welcome to School Shorts. I'm Melissa Chan-Green, broadcaster, journalist, mum, and now following a passion to help lift literacy, because I reckon I can safely say that you're as interested in helping your child to reach their full potential for reading, writing, and maths as I am. But I'm guessing I'm also not alone in thinking, with some of the stuff that they come home with, because so much has changed about the way that it is taught. And those changes are happening all around the world. New Zealand here is the most recent country to mandate a change to what's sometimes called structured literacy or a structured approach, a comprehensive approach. And we're joined today by two women who have driven that change, Liz Kane from Liz Kane Literacy and Carla McNeil from Learning Matters. Hi. Okay, I'm going to hit you with a quickfire first, but quickfire, just one question. What is the one thing that parents should know about why the way we're teaching our children to read and write is changing? Liz, we'll start with you.
I'd like to say that because this structured literacy approach is going to help all children, whether those who are struggling to learn to read, spell and write, those who find it easier and those who find it a total breeze. So it's going to help everyone.
And Carla?
We now know so much more about how the brain learns to read, and what we now know about how the brain learns to read isn't necessarily what we were taught as teacher trainees. So, that's exciting.
Okay, both questions, or both answers rather, there are going to be more questions that come out of that. So we will get into it in more depth later. But in my travels and learning about structured literacy, I haven't met anyone yet that is not doing this and not involved for a really personal reason. Is that the same for you both, Carla? Or is that the same? Is that right for you?
Yeah, definitely. My personal reason, one of them, is that my own son found learning to read incredibly difficult. As his mum, I didn't really know how to help him. I thought I did. I was a school teacher, then became a principal. And as a principal, I really learnt that actually I myself didn't really know how to help those children in a way that would lead to sustained progress in literacy. So that really is my why as to, why we really need to look at this deeply and consider how we are teaching our children to read in an evidence-based way.
Now that you know what you know, how is that emotionally? I imagine that's quite a hard thing to grapple with.
Yeah, and even you asking that, I get, a little bit welled up. It doesn't ever get easier. He's 22 now and he can read, but spelling is a real challenge for him. So it is incredibly difficult, but one day I'm going to have Grandy's Mel and I'm 100% going to know how to help him. And I look forward to that day.
Yeah, and they'll be very lucky Grandies too. Liz, do you have a personal reason?
Yeah, probably got a couple. One is back in the classroom, myself, like Carla, when you're teaching, I can now reflect on the numerous children that were in my class that I actually have grieved for because I didn't know what I know now. I didn't have the knowledge, I didn't have the resources, didn't know the how to reach and teach all of the children in front of me. I did well with some kids, but not well enough with others. The other one is the job I was doing before this was called a resource teacher of literacy, and I was in 14 schools. And in every classroom in each of those schools, there were children struggling. And I realised that we were missing something really important. And so once we found out more, it's like, let's just get on and do this for the teachers so that they can do this for our children.
And you both come at this with some teaching experience, but knowing what you know now, how important is it, or what kind of role can parents play if they have the information? How important is it that they have the information, and what impact can they have if they know it?
Okay, well, at home, if they've got little ones who are coming home with little books and things, if they are the little decodable passages that we're talking about, it's important that they keep their children's eyes on the words. Enjoy the pictures, but it's about reading the words. And if they haven't got that depth of knowledge of the sound letter correspondence that, the teachers are teaching the children, then it's probably best they just tell them those words, but keep it fun and engaging. The other thing I think is important, they keep to read to the kids. at home, because that's building knowledge, it's building vocabulary, it's fun, it's that exciting time with the children.
I think it's crucial, Mal, and to add to what Liz has said, that as parents, we must understand that we are the only person who travels the entire educational journey with our children. And so we are their chief advocate. And so it's really important that we do listen to podcasts such as this, and we do take the time to learn, because like it or lump it, we are that person for our little people. And so it's really, really important for us to learn and to learn how to communicate and ask questions about how our children are progressing, because a teacher is in a stewardship role with a child for a year, but then that teacher changes, and then it changes again the next year most likely. But a parent travels the whole lifespan of education with the child, and we can learn so much throughout that journey. It's really, it's a real privilege to go on that journey with our own children.
And so I want to pick up on something, some advice you gave there, Liz, about the sound to symbol, or I guess sound to letter relationship, because this is at the heart of what structured literacy is, right? Can you just explain a bit about how you would describe to parents what structured literacy is? Because it's that, but there's a lot more in terms of the way it's taught too.
It is. If we're just looking at one element, if we're just looking at reading, because structured literacy, of course, is all the aspects of literacy, handwriting, fluency, vocab. But if we're just looking at the reading, at the early reading acquisition for our little people when they start, historically what we have done when children have arrived at school is we have just gifted them a book. The first day or the first week. But of course, with this approach now, we've left that book till later. What we're going to do is teach the children what we call the sound to symbol or letter to sound correspondence. So there'll be a certain set of letters that the children need to learn, and they'll be taught explicitly with the teachers. The children will be writing those, they'll be able to read those. Then they'll be taught to blend those together to read little words and to be able to write those words, until finally the teachers are like, yep, you're ready actually to have your first little book. So the book that will be put in front of the children is what they have previously been taught. And so it's a place to practice all of that wonderful, fun, engaging teaching, but not overloading the children. We're just doing this in a logical, systematic way for our kids. So the children will start to understand, when they see an M to begin with, that will be and an S will be S, and an A will be A, and we'll start to learn to push those together to read words.
And that's, I guess, what you'd call phonological awareness. But Carla, there's also changes in the way that teachers are teaching this stuff as well, right? And for parents, it might not necessarily have relevance to what you do at home. But I think it is also interesting for parents to understand how the way of teaching changes in the classroom. Can you just explain a bit about that?
So that is probably the how of the teaching as well as the what. That really is a big shift. I think it's important that we acknowledge that for our teachers, for parents to understand that it is a big shift. Liz did a great job of breaking down those steps that occur before we get to that end product of going into a text. And, excuse me, there's a couple of things that I want to elaborate on to answer your question. The first one is, and Liz kind of pointed this out, the teaching is very explicit. So we kind of tell the children, there are no assumptions that the children will already have that knowledge in place. So we're very, very considered around explicitly or directly teaching those foundation skills. We don't leave anything to chance, particularly in those foundation levels.
That's quite interesting, because as parents, sometimes I think we think, open a book and say, now, what do you think this word is? Or kind of test your child. Yeah. But are you saying that actually sometimes, and because you said this too, Liz, sometimes if you don't think they have the knowledge, just tell them.
That's an end product of previous skills that have needed to be taught. So if I liken it to an analogy that parents will be familiar with, when our children are learning to swim, they don't jump in the pool and swim a length of freestyle. There's a whole lot of micro skills that lead up to getting to swim that length of freestyle. So in a structured literacy approach, in all elements, as Liz was saying, we're very logical and we build cumulatively on those micro skills to get to a point where we can read connected words in a text, or we can write connected words with really great confidence. And one other thing that I will add to that as well, Mel, is that it doesn't mean that all children start at the same point when they start school. You know, we have children of differing abilities. And so therefore, when my little guy started school, he most definitely would have needed to start right back at some very, very, very early foundational skills. But some of Liz's children might have had some of those in place. So we have screening measures in our schools that identify where we should start, and we're able to differentiate where we start based on what we find.
Yeah, because some parents will be thinking, well, my child is actually quite advanced. How do I know that he or she is going to be getting that extension? Because you don't want a child to be bored in class,
totally.
Right, Liz?
No, totally. And we do have a small number, let's be realistic, it's a small number of children who arrive at school who are readers. And how lucky are they that all of those little things are happening in the brain for them. So they don't need to come back right to the very beginning of a scope and sequence. And a scope and sequence is just the order of what we're going to be teaching. There's a whole content, and then now we've got a logical order. So those children, we're not going to pull those kids into reading those little simple decodables. They can be extended. However, most of those children cannot spell. And most of those children cannot yet form letters correctly. So we'll be bringing those kids into the part of the lesson that they still need some explicit teaching and practice with.
I am hearing, and you will know this because you're both working in organisations that are working on training the teachers, but what I'm hearing is that teachers are a lot of them are learning this new way of teaching. They're having to cater to different abilities within the classroom. It's a lot to expect of teachers. How are you finding that they are about, you know, what they're having to do, but also the impact that this learning is having on them?
Teachers love it. Most of the teachers get excited because I think for many of them, they've been looking for something, knowing that in the past what we have been doing hasn't given them what they need to reach and teach all of the children. And so I suppose the impact for them is that once they start to understand a scope and sequence, understand what explicit systematic teaching looks like, the excitement for them is that they can be very clear actually about what children know as a knowledge and what they can do in the skills of what we call blending to read and segmenting to spell. Differentiation comes next after that. We can't expect teachers to all of a sudden get to the end point where they can differentiate immediately. We have to let them hone their craft with this new learning, new understanding. Carla and I have both been down that track ourselves. We had a lot for ourselves to learn, and I think we've got to allow teachers to learn this, to understand it, to be able to practice it, and then get to that next level where they feel that they can just start to differentiate and look after everyone.
Have you had, because you've both explained your personal journey with finding out this information, have you had teachers who've had quite big reactions to learning this?
Yeah, quite profound reactions. In fact, Mel, I think back to just in January where I was training quite a big cohort of teachers, and one of the teachers came up to me. It was an intensive 5-day training course, and she came up and she just said to me, I feel like you've taken me out of the darkness and the lights have been turned on. And she was a woman in her early 60s. She was a very experienced reading recovery teacher, and she was really, really emotional, but in a good way, you know, in a really good way. So yeah, it is it's really exciting for teachers to be able to lean into really deep learning, and they see these changes themselves in the classroom. Liz talked about the learning that goes on. To add to that, they actually start to notice and observe these changes in their students really, really quickly, which is incredible.
What impact, Liz, do you think it is going to have in the short term on our children? Will we know the impact that it's having in the short term?
In the short term, what we've seen already in the short term, if we think about our short term, the time that we've been doing this, we've seen some teachers and schools make huge changes, huge advances. And that's come from usually leadership, when school leaders are really on board with this. An example of a huge change in a school that we're working in is that the number of children moving from year 1 to year 2 that require intervention has decreased in a huge number. You know, in that particular school, many children, it looked as if they were so far behind that they're all going to need intervention. That hasn't happened this year, and it's a really exciting time where there's been a lot of new learning because the teaching has been taken on board, and it's driven from the top, and it's been supported resource-wise, but knowledge-wise, professional learning, that the teachers themselves actually are excited too, because they can see the kids reading, spelling and writing.
Carla, we did touch on this about how parents can help with reading at home, but I know that myself as a parent, I would go along to the library and pick out some quite simple books that I thought, oh well, my son and I will be able to read these books. With the little information that I do have now, I realise that actually that might not be the best approach. So are you able to just expand on what are the kinds of reading at home that are helpful and that is going to assist?
Yeah, great question. It's really important for parents to understand that reading means reading sounds or letter sounds in isolation. So one individual letter sound, it's reading at what we call word level, and then reading its sentences, as well as obviously reading a book as such. So thinking about those micro skills for parents to where they have, they might experience a different range of resources that are coming home from their school, or they might want to outsource some of their own resources to help.
So does that mean that you shouldn't panic if you're not getting books from school with you?
Thank you for adding that, because I really want parents to hold in their head that's the length of freestyle, and if their child is literally just starting out in their reading and literacy journey, let's think about building some of those micro skills. So learning those sounds in isolation, reading individual words, focusing on, as Liz mentioned, looking at the words, reading the letters and the letter sounds, more so, and practicing blending through those. But there is so much more to reading than just that. And so it's really important that we don't lose sight of the importance of building our children's vocabulary. And that comes from, of course, speaking to our children using more sophisticated vocabulary, reading books, non-fiction books as well as fiction books that they may be interested, that boosted their vocabulary. Because, Mel, when we do that, we're actually building a particular part of the brain, storing it, getting it ready for when they come to those words, when they're able to read them. Reading is not just about lifting the words off the page. So we want to read to our children, focus on the quality of our spoken language, and help them with that piece of lifting the words off the page as well.
Right.
And
so we kind of think of reading as my child reading. But if you're reading with them and asking them questions about the book, then actually you are helping them on their reading journey.
Yeah, could I answer that one? That's really helping to build comprehension. Yeah. But they're not necessarily reading the books themselves. Mum or dad or someone at home is reading. So I've got a little boy I'm working with, and he has loved soccer. Then he's moved to gardening, and now we're into fishing. Just fish. And so the excitement, and I know the conversation conversations I can have with him about gardening and soccer and now moving into fish are huge. And what I'm learning from him, so he's learnt from his mum, who reads to him every night, about the interest that he's into. And the vocabulary just continues to blow me away. And so what Carla's saying, and what I agree with, is that that little fella's, his name's Fletcher, by the way. His vocab, hi Fletcher. His vocab is just going through the roof. And so that's being stored. So that's helping him when he comes to more complex texts further on. He can't maybe read those words yet, but the understanding of those words is being stored, which is going to help him with comprehension later.
When do you think we will see impact? And because our children are getting assessed more often, is it going to be able to be something that can be measured?
That's a really big question, and I think we can say we are seeing impact now. There is no doubt about that. Both Liz and I would put our hands on our hearts and swear on the Bible that 100% we are seeing impact. Where we are seeing that impact would be kind of the next question. But, for parents, if we put our lens on from a parent focus and think, how will parents know if this is having an impact on their children? Then I think that, parents know their children best, and they should never, ever discount that. As a mum, you know your little person better than anybody else. And dads do too know their children well, but I can only speak from being a mum. Notice what is going on for them in terms of their motivation, in terms of their self-perception and their self-esteem, what we kind of call that psychological domain of learning, because that's our very first indicator actually to how things are going. And if we notice that our children are as happy as Larry and they are really motivated, then that's a really great first step towards them being able to lean into learning opportunities. We mustn't, on the flip side of that though, Mal, fall into a she'll be right mate scenario and think because our children are happy and motivated that they are in fact making progress. Because what we do experience is that some of our learners, to generalise little girls in particular, are very good at masking academic challenges in learning to read. So noticing our children's behaviour in the first instance, noticing how they want to engage with reading with us and lifting the words off the page and even picking up that pen and having a go at forming their letters at home is a really good indicator for us just to observe and not to be saying anything to them necessarily, but just to notice what is happening.
What are some of the strategies that children might use to hide the fact that actually they perhaps can't actually decode a word and that they can't actually sound it out? So what are the things that maybe as a parent you should look for just to check their understanding?
I think you'd notice that they weren't actually reading the words accurately.
Yeah.
You'd notice they might be leaning on the picture. You notice they might be just replacing a word that would make sense. And those are the old strategies that Carla and I were brought up on, and that's how we teach, but no, we don't do that anymore. So they may be articulate, clever, may have a wide vocab, have had wonderful experiences. They'll be leaning on that. So it's to notice and keep the parents to keep their eyes on the words and to ensure that the children are actually reading the words that are on the page.
And I just want to signal forward because I am going to be speaking with a neuroscientist, Dr. Carolyn Strom, which will be able to dig deeper into why is it that we shouldn't rely on the pictures, because I think it's important to understand why that doesn't actually build your reading knowledge.
Well, we talk a lot about using the picture to confirm what we've read. In the past, we've often looked at the picture first, and then the children might just create what they think in their head is what's on the page. But actually, we're going to read the words first, and then we might use the picture to confirm and enjoy. We still have pictures in books, and that's fine. We want children to enjoy and be engaged in pictures and words, and that they do. There will be some connection. But if we are focused on the picture, the answers are not the words. The words are not in the picture. The words are on the page.
Yeah.
The written symbols.
Okay, you've already given a lot of practical advice there, but do you have any other tips just as to what parents can be doing to help support learning at home? We've already covered building vocabulary through reading books together that they may be really interested in and talking about those books, asking questions, talking about the meaning of words, looking for whether they're actually sounding out words rather than looking at pictures. Are there any other things that you think are really helpful for parents to do?
I have one other, Mel, that is read yourself. Model reading to your children. Create an environment where reading is a norm. There's a lot of research that backs that in terms of a motivational perspective that can really enhance your children's motivation to reading. I'm not saying that that's going to make them a reader, but we've already stated quite a few tips that parents could take away. So, it's a little bit like practice what you preach. If you want your children to develop a love of reading, then we as parents should model that for our children as well.
I think too, it'll be good for parents to find out from the teachers what's the topic, what's the theme, what's the knowledge that the children are learning about in the classroom. We've got some schools, which is fabulous. The teachers are actually sending a preloading on the Friday, sending some home videos and a little bit of information about what's coming up for the next week to do with, the knowledge building that's happening. It's about pelicans or penguins and whatever it is, because they're finding now that the discussions at home are so much deeper and highly engaging. So if there was some connection to what is happening, what are the children learning about at school, then I think the parents gives them a place to start those conversations with their own children about the knowledge.
Wonderful. What about those letter sounds? Should you as a parent be practicing that at home, or are there certain games maybe that you can play that are just fun, quick, easy things that are going to help? I
think see what comes home from the school.
So you know kind of what letter they're doing.
Yeah, totally. It's right from the very start. There might just be 2 or 3 letters they're doing. But if it's further down the track and we're into some spelling, it will be really nice to know what spelling patterns or what little spelling rule they're using. And we don't expect parents to know all this. So there's got to be some information, I think, coming from the school if they want, if parents want to help, teachers could and should be helping the parents as well to understand this, because this is getting into the intimate understanding of the alphabetic code of English, which is really complex. And so it'd be really helpful if there was something going home, if maybe we're learning a certain pattern, that then that sound and that spelling pattern was able to be understood by the parents. So that's creating a communication.
And a lot of schools are holding parent information sessions in this space of structured literacy implementation. So absolutely making sure that parents can attend those or ask for the handouts that are associated if they couldn't go would be probably really useful for them too.
We have focused a lot on what parents can do here, and this is, hopefully really useful for parents. But I also just want to give you the opportunity, because you work so closely, both of you, with teachers, just to mention, I guess, the work that is going on and to acknowledge the work that is going on within schools, because this is a worldwide movement towards a structured approach or a comprehensive approach, or, there's various ways that people describe it. But yeah, just, I guess, some acknowledgement for what teachers are doing.
Yeah, certainly. Look, change is hard, and it can be challenging. It can be confronting. And we're always excited, when we're working with teachers. We're rolling out the year 0 to 8 professional learning with lots and lots of teachers. And we want to acknowledge to teachers that we have been on that learning journey ourselves. So we know that we knew that change was needed, but we had to do that learning as well. So we like to think that we're going alongside the teachers, and we take our hat off to them. They're busy people. They are time poor. And so it's an exciting time. And I think if they look after themselves by considering that they're taking small steps and keep mastering something and building on something else, and looking around their colleagues to support them as well. But really, it's what we need. We know it's what we need, and the changes are happening. But we acknowledge it is a big change, and just take small steps and celebrate those little things that, that you just go, those aha moments, or that I get that now, I've got it.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you, Mel, to all the teachers that are actually leaning into this opportunity to increase their learning. So many of us have those personal stories like I shared with you, many, many, many teachers themselves. And I see that this is about all of us across the education sector contributing to the creation of a literate society in the years to come. And I know that's why we sit here. We're really committed to that. And I know that's why teachers in the classroom got into this particular profession, because they want to make a difference. And I want to really acknowledge them for that and say, you are making a difference every day in those classrooms. And every time you lean into the opportunity to learn, you're taking time out or creating the time to make a difference for all of those little people who could one day be doing hip replacements on us. We want them to be able to read the procedures
and write down exactly what they've been doing. Parents will think, okay, so this work is being carried out through schools. How do I know that my child is at a school where they are doing this according to best practice? Is there variability between schools? What are the questions parents need to ask, or do they not need to have concerns about that?
I don't really think that parents want to come in the first instance from a place of concern. I always have this little saying, let's always presume positive intent. And then we want to come in and just actually, look out for those opportunities at your school to attend the parent information sessions. Now is a really important time in education to read the school newsletter and to follow the email notices that come out to you. So just really try to get across all the pieces of information that are coming your way. Yes, I think we would have to be honest and say, of course, there will be variability in implementation. That is no different from the GP practices you take your children to. Schools will be no different. But one of the great things about New Zealand is we are a small country, Mel. And I saw how this rolled out in Mississippi, a state in the US of a very similar size. And I think we should be very proud of the efforts that are being taken here in New Zealand to have this, for lack of a better term, blanket implementation to try to build knowledge across the sector to bring everybody forward. And, it won't happen overnight, but hopefully it'll happen.
And I have been into schools and seen the incredible work that is going on in the school, but also the work that is happening after hours, and so much work that is happening after hours with teachers. Not just that, but I know that they're taking that home with them and thinking about it. It's consuming a lot of people's energy and thoughts. So I would say a big thank you to teachers as well, and to all of those who are helping with this rollout, including both of you. I know you're working between you with thousands of teachers. So thank you so much. It means a lot to parents too, and hopefully more will know about what you're doing. Thank you both so much. Really appreciate it. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. If that topic was helpful for you and you'd like to hear more, please do like and subscribe. It sends me that feedback. School Shorts is all about supporting busy parents who want their children to thrive. Follow on social at SchoolShortsNZ for fun ideas, helpful resources, and exclusive giveaways.